Welcome to State of Reform's virtual leadership series with some of healthcare's most thoughtful leaders. And now, the host of State of Reform, DJ Wilson.
Hello and welcome to another edition of our leadership series here at State of Reform. And, you know, people are talking about vaccines. People have been thinking about disease states throughout this pandemic, and we're really honored to be sitting down today with one of the foremost voices on the subject. David Herring is the market president for North America at Pfizer for vaccines. And David, thank you very much for making time to be with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So give us a rundown first where we sit here in the middle of October. Paint a broad picture for us about where we sit today in terms of vaccine development for COVID.
Yeah, it's been a ridiculous journey so far. It's hard to believe we're, I guess, about 6-7 months in. The first gene sequence for COVID-19 was available maybe in the January timeframe, and Pfizer, with their partner BioNTech, immediately started work on this process. We had early clinical trials both in Germany and the U.S. We had multiple different vaccine candidates, one of which we took into phase 3. We're in the midst of that phase 3 trial, very well enrolled, on our way to 44,000 subjects. So that's really where we are now. It's a trial that's testing, of course, the vaccine safety and efficacy against placebo, making sure that the vaccine, A, provides protection, and B, of course, is safe. And we're looking for interim results and can use some of those results then to apply for an either emergency use authorization and or a license from the FDA. So we're really almost at the point of getting an understanding, will the vaccine work and be safe or not? Our CEO has talked about having that data as early as the end of this month. So we all have our fingers crossed and are looking forward to see what the outcome is.
Yeah. And give us a sense, it seems like we're already moving at hyperspeed or warp speed, depending on one's politics, I guess. But how long do you think the logistics of manufacturing and distribution will take once you get clearance from the FDA, either through emergency use or otherwise? How long will it take for any American who wants a vaccine to readily have one available?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, of course, the first priority is getting the vaccine and getting access to the vaccine to those most vulnerable. We've heard about them, right? Our essential workers, our healthcare workers, our older adults, minorities, those who have all been hit incredibly hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. I think we'll probably be into next year, of course, before we have enough vaccine available by Pfizer, BioNTech, and other manufacturers that any American could go and get the vaccine and have it readily available.
Yeah.
Of course, at Pfizer, we're working to do that as soon as possible. We're on track for tens of millions of doses to be available this year globally, and more than 1 billion doses to be available next year.
And I'm sorry, I don't know this. Is the Pfizer vaccine a 2-dose vaccine, or is it a single dose? 2-dose?
No, correct. 2 doses, 3 weeks apart.
Yeah, got it. And, people who we've talked to in our coverage and reporting have said that we're sort of on the cusp of a real leap in science, particularly with the mRNA, the messenger RNA model vaccines that are being developed at Pfizer and in other science. Give us a sense of what you make of that statement. Are we on sort of a real leap forward in terms of vaccine science here, or is this more of an incremental step forward?
I mean, I think we're on the cusp of a big leap forward. Just as you said, mRNA is a platform. It's certainly a technology that can be used for multiple vaccines in development. We at Pfizer have a partnership with BioNTech that dates back a few years for influenza vaccines, and we all know and love our yearly influenza vaccines, but could you make them more efficacious or to a point where you wouldn't need one every year? Of course, that's one of the big dreams. And I think the technology is still being proven out, but the ability to basically tell your own cells to make vaccine, provide antibodies for these diseases instead of having to put the actual virus, attenuated or other ways into the bloodstream, is a really fantastic advancement and one that should have broad applicability.
Yeah. And I also understand that mRNA production is much faster, right? Faster to market than more traditional methods. Is that accurate?
That's correct, right? The scale up and process, right, in a lot of the traditional influenza vaccines, you need tons of eggs. You might need, in cell culture, large bioreactors, which are these giant stainless steel, vessels. So here, right, the technology allows you to make more vaccine quicker without the same footprint that you would need on the manufacturing side, which is, of course, very helpful, not having to put in, multi-year, huge capital expenses to try to get to that same capacity.
And how do you think about, at Pfizer, questions of equity of distribution, particularly across countries, but also within countries? I think it makes a lot of sense, for instance, to have first responders and medical professionals vaccinated first. How do you sort of think about making sure that income or equity across income and demographics is taken into account as distribution and production moves forward?
Yeah, it's a great question, and certainly one we've been grappling with at Pfizer really since the beginning of all this and the thought of having a potential vaccine. Certainly in the U.S., the process is a little bit more straightforward, right? You have the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, or ACIP, that does a lot of that prioritization and looks at taking those first doses in particular where there's not enough and making sure there's equitable distribution. But we at Pfizer, of course, have also been working on providing doses into other developed countries, as well as the developing world, having conversations with the WHO, the Gates Foundation, Gavi, vaccine alliances, really leveraging the way we currently distribute our largest vaccines and utilizing a similar approach for what we're planning to do for COVID-19.
It seems like everything gets politicized during a general election season where we find ourselves today. How have Pfizer tried to navigate the political winds during this last few months?
Yeah, I think most importantly, we've been driven by the science, and certainly the science will provide us the path forward, as well as the timing. So you really can't rush the clinical trial. It happens on the course that it is, right? It's an event-based trial. And so we're, of course, doing everything we can to get the results as quickly as possible, knowing that we have people continuing to get sick and dying. And so every day matters. But that's really the driver behind this. The sort of politics, I think, really get more pushed into the media side of this. But from our day-to-day, we're just going about it the same way we would with other vaccines, only, of course, on a much faster timeline, without cutting corners, just doing things in parallel, unprecedented access to the FDA and others to make sure that we can get a vaccine to market that's safe and efficacious as soon as possible.
Well, it's not every day one finds oneself in the middle of a great scientific leap forward, so we should appreciate it while we find ourselves in it. David Herring, the market president at Pfizer for vaccines here in North America. Thank you, sir, for making time to be with us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us in this virtual conversation and for your support of our work at State of Reform.